I'm Melisande, 35 years old, and I thought this year's family picnic would be like every other. A few hours of enduring condescending comments, then driving back to my quiet life in Seattle. But my sister Vivian had other plans. The sound of her champagne glass clinking still echoes in my memory, followed by words designed to cut deep. And then came the sound that changed everything: the roar of jet engines. Before I tell you how one toast turned into the most satisfying moment of my life, I'd love to know where you're watching from. Drop your location in the comments, hit that like button, and subscribe, because what happened next proved that silence isn't weakness, it's strategy. My life in Seattle is nothing like what my family imagines. I live in a modest apartment in Capitol Hill, with a view of the Space Needle Drive, a 15-year-old Toyota Camry that still runs perfectly, and buy my clothes from Target and Old Navy. Nothing about my appearance screams wealth. I prefer it that way. What my family doesn't know, what they've never bothered to ask about, is that I'm the founder and CEO of Meltech Solutions, a cybersecurity software company valued at $300 million. My personal net worth sits at approximately $78 million, and last year alone, my salary and dividends totaled just over $2 million. But you'd never know it to look at me. I grew up in Connecticut in a upper-middle-class family in the town of Newton. My father, Harold, was an accountant, my mother, Dorothy, a homemaker who devoted herself to social climbing and comparing her children. My older sister, Vivian, 38, has always been the golden child. She married Preston Caldwell, a real estate developer, and they live in a mansion in Greenwich that looks like it belongs in a magazine. Everything about Vivian's life is calculated for maximum display. Her cars, her clothes, her jewelry, her carefully curated Instagram feed. She measures success in square footage and designer labels. Then there's my older brother Jasper, 40, who works as a banker in Manhattan. He shares Vivian's values, always talking about his portfolio, his bonus, his achievements. And then there's me, the odd one out, the one who chose computer science over law or medicine, the one who moved across the country, the one who in their eyes threw away every advantage they tried to give me. 10 years ago, when I first started Meltech in my tiny Seattle apartment, I told my family about it. I was excited, nervous, hopeful. My mother's response was dismissive. "That's nice, dear, but when are you going to get a real job?" My father said nothing, just returned to his newspaper. Vivian actually laughed. "A tech startup, Melisande, 90% of those fail. You should really think about grad school or finding a nice corporate position with benefits." When I tried to explain my vision, my passion, the problem I was solving, they changed the subject. So when Meltech started succeeding, when we secured our first major client, then our second, then our 10th, I didn't tell them. When we got venture capital funding, when we expanded to 17 employees, when Forbes mentioned us in an article about promising startups, I stayed quiet. I wanted to see something. I wanted to conduct an experiment. Would my family love me, respect me, value me if they thought I had nothing? Or was their affection conditional on success, on money, on status? For 10 years, I've had my answer. Every year I fly back to Connecticut for the annual family picnic in June. It's a tradition my mother insists on, held at Riverside Park, a sprawling green space along the Connecticut River. The park happens to be adjacent to a small private airfield, though I'd never paid much attention to that detail until this year. I always arrive in my old Camry, wearing simple clothes, bringing store-bought potato salad because I work too much to cook. Vivian arrives like royalty in whatever luxury vehicle she's currently driving, wearing designer everything with catered food from expensive restaurants. And every year the comments come. Little digs, backhanded compliments, expressions of concern that are really expressions of superiority. Vivian leads the charge, but others join in. My mother with her sighs and disappointed looks. Jasper with his casual mentions of his own success. Cousins and aunts and uncles who've learned that pitying Melisande is part of the family culture. This year I booked my usual commercial flight from Seattle to Hartford. I rented an economy car at the airport. I stopped at Stop and Shop and bought a container of potato salad, some paper plates, and a bottle of cheap wine. But I also did something different. I scheduled a private jet to pick me up at that airfield next to the park at exactly 2:45 in the afternoon. I had a legitimate reason. I needed to be in London by the next morning for a crucial meeting with a British financial institution interested in licensing our software. The time difference meant I had to leave Connecticut by mid-afternoon. I'd sent an email to my family 2 weeks earlier explaining I'd have to leave the picnic early due to work commitments. No one responded. No one cared. I arrived at Riverside Park at 11 in the morning on a perfect June Saturday. The sun was brilliant, the temperature in the mid-70s, ideal picnic weather. The park was already full of my extended family. I counted about 25 people. Multiple picnic tables had been pushed together, covered with checkered tablecloths. A grill was smoking nearby. Children were running around. It looked like a Norman Rockwell painting. I parked my Camry in the lot and grabbed my sad little grocery store potato salad and my canvas tote bag. As I walked toward the gathering, I saw Vivian holding court near the main table. She wore a white sundress that probably cost more than most people's monthly rent. Her blonde hair perfectly styled, oversized sunglasses perched on her head, jewelry glinting in the sunshine. Preston stood beside her in khakis and a polo shirt that screamed country club. They looked like they were posing for a Ralph Lauren ad. Vivian saw me approaching, and her smile became sharp. "Oh, Melisande, you made it. I'm surprised you could afford the gas to drive here." She said it loud enough for everyone nearby to hear. A few people laughed. I smiled blandly and set my potato salad on the table next to her elaborate spread of catered lobster rolls, imported cheeses, and champagne. "Nice to see you too, Vivian." The first hour passed in familiar patterns. I tried to talk to my mother about work, but she kept redirecting the conversation to Vivian's recent vacation to the Amalfi Coast. My father asked if I was still renting my apartment, his tone suggesting renting at 35 was embarrassing. When I said yes, he shook his head and returned to his conversation with Uncle Robert about municipal bonds. Jasper cornered me briefly to talk about his investment portfolio, never once asking about my work or my life. It was like being a ghost at my own family gathering. Around noon, everyone gathered for lunch. The tables were laden with food. Vivian's catered spread dominated the center, making my grocery store potato salad look pathetic by comparison. People filled their plates and found seats. I ended up between Cousin Mark and Aunt Patricia, both of whom smiled at me with that particular brand of pity reserved for family disappointments. As people ate, Vivian held court from the head of the table. She had a gift for commanding attention, for making every conversation about her. She showed pictures on her phone of the kitchen renovation she and Preston had just completed. Marble countertops, custom cabinetry, professional-grade appliances. It cost $175,000, she announced proudly. But it adds at least $300,000 to the home value, Preston added, as if that justified it. Then came the subtle digs at me. "Oh, Melisande, you brought potato salad again," from the grocery store. "How practical." She said practical like it was a synonym for pathetic. A few people chuckled uncomfortably. I ate my lobster roll, which I had to admit was delicious, and said nothing. "Is that Camry still running?" Vivian continued. "I'm amazed. Preston and I just got a new Range Rover." She gestured toward the parking lot where a gleaming black SUV sat. "It's the hybrid model, 93,000, but you know environmental responsibility is important to us." The irony of someone with a 10,000 square foot house talking about environmental responsibility wasn't lost on me, but I just nodded. "You know," Vivian said, reaching over to touch my arm with false warmth, "I have some clothes from last season I could give you. They're still in excellent condition. Designer labels. They might be a little big on you, but you could have them altered." Several people at the table stopped eating. The discomfort was palpable. I could see Cousin Emily cringing, but I maintained my pleasant expression. "That's very generous, Vivian. But I'm fine with what I have." "Still doing that computer thing?" Jasper asked from across the table. "Have you thought about getting a real job?" "You know, something with a pension, health insurance, stability." The implication being that my work was neither real nor stable. "I've actually been with the same company for 10 years, I said mildly. "That's pretty stable." "But you own it, right?" he pressed. "Or partially own it." "That's so risky, Melisande. What if it fails?" "You'll have nothing. No retirement, no safety net." I sipped my water. I'll take my chances. The meal continued with more of the same. Every topic circled back to someone else's success and my implied failure. My mother mentioned how proud she was of Vivian's charitable work, serving on the board of 3 different organizations. "And Jasper just got promoted to senior vice president," she added. Her eyes slid to me, then away, as if the sight of me was disappointing. I pushed food around my plate and checked my watch. 1:15, an hour and a half until the jet arrived. Cousin Emily, who was 28 and worked in marketing in Boston, leaned over and whispered, "Don't let Vivian get to you. She's always been like this." "I know," I whispered back. "It's fine." Emily frowned. "Is it, though? You don't have to take this every year?" I smiled at her. "Just a few more hours." Emily was one of the few family members who'd ever shown me genuine kindness. But even she'd never stood up to Vivian or challenged the family narrative. I didn't blame her. Vivian was formidable. After lunch, Vivian pulled out her phone and began showing more photos. Her vacation in the Maldives, their newly renovated master bathroom with the heated marble floors, her jewelry collection which she kept in a custom-built vault in their closet. Each photo came with a price tag and a comparison. "I'm sure you can't afford vacations like this, Melisande, but maybe someday you'll get there. Preston bought me this necklace for our anniversary. $20,000. But I'm sure you understand money isn't everything." The subtext being that I had neither money nor anything else of value. I excused myself to use the restroom, walking across the park to the facilities near the playground. When I returned, I checked my watch again. 1:30. An hour and 15 minutes. I could make it. At 2 o'clock, Vivian announced she had an idea. "Let's play a game. Let's go around and everyone share their biggest accomplishment this year." My stomach tightened. This was a setup. I could feel it, but refusing would make me look defensive, afraid. So I said nothing. Jasper went first. "I made senior VP at the bank this year. Salary increase of $100,000 plus bonuses." Everyone applauded. Cousin Mark. "We bought a vacation home in the Hamptons, 3 bedrooms right on the beach." More applause. Vivian saved herself for last, building the anticipation. "Preston and I closed on a commercial property worth $10 million. We're developing it into luxury condos. The project value is estimated at $40 million. She paused for effect. "It's been our best year yet." The applause was thunderous. Then Vivian turned to me, her smile predatory. "Melisande, what about you? What's your biggest accomplishment this year?" 25 pairs of eyes focused on me. The table went quiet. I cleared my throat. "I had a good year at work." Vivian leaned forward. "That's it, just a good year. Can you be more specific?" "We secured some new clients," I said. Vivian actually laughed. "Clients I didn't know. Grocery stores counted as clients." Several people chuckled. I saw my mother look away. "Seriously, Mel?" Vivian continued, using the nickname I'd always hated. "When are you going to get serious about life? You're 35, no husband, no house, no real career." She gestured vaguely at me. "Don't you want more? Or are you content being this?" I felt heat rise in my face, but I kept my voice level. "I'm content with my choices." Preston leaned back in his chair. "There's no shame in asking for help, Melisande. We could probably find you a position at one of our properties. Receptionist, maybe entry-level property management." The piling on continued. Aunt Margaret chimed in. "I always wondered why you didn't go to law school like we suggested." "You were bright enough," Uncle Robert added. "Technology is such an unstable field. You should have chosen something reliable. Teaching, maybe. Or nursing." Cousin Sarah, trying to be kind, said, "At least you're healthy, right? That's something." The implication being that health was all I had. I sat there with my hands folded in my lap, my face carefully neutral. Inside, I was counting down. 2:15, 30 minutes. Vivian wasn't finished. "You know what, everyone? Let's be honest here." She stood up, warming to her subject. "Melisande has always been the odd one out in this family. She made different choices. She rejected the path we laid out for her. And now look where she is." She gestured at me like I was an exhibit. "Still struggling, while the rest of us have succeeded, have built something, have lives we're proud of." The silence that followed was heavy. I could see discomfort on some faces, but no one spoke up. No one defended me. Vivian continued. "But it's okay, Mel. We still love you. Even if you're a disappointment to the family, even if you wasted your potential, you're still our sister, our daughter, our cousin. We'll always be here for you." Her tone was magnanimous, as if she were being charitable. I looked at her then, around at the faces watching me. I appreciate your concern, Vivian. My voice was steady. But I'm doing fine. Vivian's eyebrows shot up. Fine, sweetie, you drove here in a 15-year-old Camry. You're wearing a t-shirt from Target. You brought grocery store potato salad. That's not fine. That's sad. I could see my mother nodding agreement. My father was studying his plate. Jasper looked satisfied, as if justice had been served. At 2:30, Vivian suddenly stood up again. She grabbed her champagne glass. Actually, I want to make a toast. Everyone looked up, sensing something was coming. I felt my phone buzz in my pocket. I pulled it out, glanced at the screen. A text from my pilot. ETA 15 minutes. Landing at 2:45 p.m. as scheduled. I looked at the message, then at Vivian standing there with her glass raised, and I felt something shift inside me. I put my phone away and looked directly at her. Please go ahead with your toast. Vivian raised her champagne glass higher, making sure everyone was watching. I want to make a toast to family. Her voice carried across the park. Everyone dutifully raised their glasses, wine, water, beer, whatever they had. To the people who show up year after year. To the ones who've made something of themselves. She paused, letting the words hang in the air. And to the one who always shows up broke. Her eyes locked on mine. To Melisande, who reminds us that not everyone can succeed. Who shows us that it's okay to fail as long as you have family to fall back on. She raised her glass even higher. To my little sister, who I'm sure will figure it out someday. Maybe, if she's lucky. Some people actually raise their glasses. I saw Preston laughing. My mother looked uncomfortable but said nothing. My father stared at his plate. I sat perfectly still, not moving, not reacting, simply looking at Vivian. That's a lovely toast, I said calmly. Very thorough. Vivian, emboldened by what she perceived as my acceptance, continued. I mean, look at us. Look at what we have. She gestured around the table. And then look at you. Still renting, still single, still pretending that computer hobby is a career. When are you going to admit you need help? When are you going to stop pretending and ask your successful family for support? Because we would help you, Mel. We really would, if you just admitted you needed it. At that exact moment, 2:45, a sound cut through the air, distant at first but growing louder, a mechanical whirring deep and powerful. People paused, glasses halfway to lips. What is that? Someone asked. The sound grew louder, unmistakable now. Jet engines. Everyone turned to look toward the airfield adjacent to the park. Over the trees, descending in a perfect approach, came a sleek white and blue Gulfstream G650, the most beautiful private jet money can charter. The plane came in low and smooth, touching down on the runway, with barely a bounce. The engines powered down but remained audible, a low thrumming that filled the air. Everyone at the picnic was staring. Whose plane is that? Someone important must be flying in. Maybe a celebrity. Vivian, annoyed at losing the attention, tried to redirect. Anyway, as I was saying. But I was already standing up, picking up my small canvas bag. Excuse me, everyone. That's my ride. The words dropped into the silence like stones into still water. Vivian turned to me, her face confused. What I repeated calmly. That's my plane. Well chartered. But I use it regularly for business travel. Vivian laughed, but it sounded forced. Right. Sure it is. I pulled out my phone, turned the screen to show her. The confirmation email. Gulfstream G650, registration number, passenger, Melisande Hartwell, destination London, Luton Airport, departure time 2:45. Vivian grabbed my phone, stared at it. This is fake. This has to be fake. I took my phone back gently. Call the number if you want to verify. I'm scheduled to depart in about 5 minutes. I have a meeting in London tomorrow morning that's worth approximately $200 million to my company. I need to leave now. I started walking toward the airfield entrance, about 200 yards away across the grass. Wait, Vivian's voice was sharp. Melisande, wait. I stopped, turned back. Everyone was standing now, staring. Yes, Vivian's face had gone pale. How can you afford a private jet? What's going on? Preston stepped forward. Melisande, explain this. My mother found her voice. Honey, what's happening? I took a deep breath and walked back toward them, stopping about 10 feet away so everyone could hear. You want to know how I can afford it? I looked around at all the faces. at family members who'd spent 10 years pitying me, condescending to me, making me the butt of their jokes and the recipient of their charity. I'm the founder and CEO of Meltech Solutions. We specialize in cybersecurity software for financial institutions and healthcare providers. We have contracts with 17 Fortune 500 companies. Last year, our revenue was $340 million. My personal net worth is approximately $78 million. The silence was absolute. Not a single person moved. I pulled a business card from my bag, walked over, and handed it to Vivian. My business card. Melisande Hartwell, CEO and founder, Meltech Solutions. I pulled up our company website on my phone, showed her the leadership page with my photo prominently displayed. I scrolled to recent news articles. Here's a piece from TechCrunch about our latest funding round. Here's one from Forbes about women-led tech companies. Here's one from the Wall Street Journal about our contracts with 3 major banks. Jasper pushed through the small crowd. Wait, Meltech. That's your company. I recommended that stock to 3 of my clients last month after researching the company. You're that Melisande Hartwell? I nodded. That's me. Vivian was still staring at the phone screen, her face cycling through emotions. Shock, disbelief, embarrassment, anger. This can't be real. Why wouldn't you tell us? Preston looked like someone had hit him with a board. I looked around at my family, at their shocked faces, and something that had been compressed inside me for 10 years finally released. I started Meltech 10 years ago in my 1-bedroom apartment in Seattle. I told you about it then. I was excited. I wanted to share it with you. Do you remember what you said? I looked at my mother. You said it was nice, but asked when I'd get a real job. I looked at my father. You said nothing. You went back to your newspaper. I looked at Vivian. You laughed and told me 90% of startups fail. So when it started succeeding, I didn't tell you. I wanted to see something. I wanted to know if you'd love me, respect me, value me, without knowing about the money. I looked at each of them in turn. For 10 years, I've come to these picnics. I've listened to the comments about my car, my clothes, my life. I've been pitied, patronized, and insulted. And I stayed quiet. Not because I was ashamed, but because I wanted to see who you really were. Vivian, you just gave a toast calling me broke, calling me a failure, suggesting I need my family's charity. My voice was steady, matter of fact. The truth is, I could buy your house in Greenwich, in cash, today. I could buy 10 of them. But I don't need to because I don't measure my worth by possessions. You mocked my Camry. It's 15 years old, completely paid off, and it runs perfectly. Why would I replace something that works? You laughed at my Target clothes. They're comfortable and I like them. You pitied my apartment. It's a 2-bedroom in Capitol Hill with a view of the Space Needle. I own it outright. It's worth $1.2 million, and I chose it because I like the neighborhood, not because I needed to impress anyone. I turned to address the whole group. For 10 years, I've watched you all assume the worst about me. You assumed I was struggling. You assumed I was poor. You assumed I'd failed. And not once, not one single time did any of you ask. Ask how my company was doing. Ask if I was happy. Ask what I was working on. You all just assumed and judged. Do you know what hurts most? It's not the insults. I've heard worse in boardrooms from people trying to take my company from me. What hurts is that you're my family, and you couldn't see past your own prejudices and assumptions to actually know me. My mother stepped forward, tears in her eyes. Melisande, I didn't know. If I had known, I would have. I cut her off. If you had known I was rich, you would have treated me differently. That's exactly the problem, Mom. Your respect shouldn't come with a price tag. Your love shouldn't be conditional on my net worth. I turned to Vivian. You made that toast to humiliate me, to put me in my place in front of everyone, to remind me that I'm less than you. But the only person who looks small right now is you. Preston tried to recover. We were just joking around, family teasing. You're taking this too seriously. I looked at him. Jokes are funny. Humiliation isn't. And it wasn't just today. It's been years of this. Every family gathering, every phone call, every interaction. I've been the disappointment, the charity case, the cautionary tale. Well, I'm done. My mother was crying now. We thought we were encouraging you to do better by making me feel worthless, by treating me like a failure. That's not encouragement, Mom. That's cruelty. My father finally spoke, his voice gruff. You should have told us about the company, about the success. I shook my head. Why? So you could be proud of me. I didn't want pride that came from my bank account. I wanted you to value me as a person. But you couldn't do that. My phone rang. I answered. Ms. Hartwell, we're ready for departure whenever you are. I'll be there in 5 minutes. I hung up and picked up my bag. I have a meeting in London tomorrow morning with executives from Barclays Bank. The contract we're negotiating is worth approximately $200 million over 3 years. I have a company to run, employees who depend on me, clients who trust me. I have a life full of people who value me for who I am, not what I have. I looked at each family member one last time. Going forward, things will be different. I'm not coming to these picnics anymore. I'm not subjecting myself to this treatment. If any of you want a relationship with me, it needs to be genuine. It needs to be based on respect, not on what you think I can give you or what you can get from me. Because I guarantee, Vivian, now that you know, you'll want me to invest in Preston's projects. I saw her face flush. Jasper, you'll want me to move my company's banking to your institution. He looked down. Mom, you'll suddenly be proud of me, want to brag to your friends about your successful daughter. She sobbed. But the time for that was 10 years ago, when I needed your support and got judgment instead. I started walking toward the airfield. Emily called out Melisande. Wait! I turned. She hurried over, her face flushed. I'm sorry. I should have said something all these years. I should have defended you. I softened slightly. Thank you, Emily. That means something. My number hasn't changed. Call me if you want to talk. Actually talk, not ask for things. She nodded, tears in her eyes. I walked across the grass toward the runway where the jet-weighted engines running low. Behind me, I could hear my family erupting. Vivian's voice shrill and angry, Preston trying to calm her down, my mother sobbing, my father's deep voice confused and upset, other relatives talking over each other, shocked, gossiping, processing. But I didn't look back. I walked with my shoulders straight, my head high. The pilot met me at the stairs leading up to the cabin. Good afternoon, Ms. Hartwell. How was your event? I smiled. Educational. Very educational. I stepped into the plane's luxurious interior, settled into one of the cream leather seats, and accepted a bottle of water from the flight attendant. The door sealed shut with a quiet hiss. The engines powered up. Within minutes, we were taxiing down the runway. I looked out the window and saw my family still gathered in the park. Tiny figures now, some standing, some sitting, all watching the plane. I wondered what they were saying, what they were thinking. Then we lifted into the air, and Connecticut disappeared below us, and I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Free. Completely free. The flight to London was 7 hours. I used the time to review materials for tomorrow's meeting, to answer emails, to prepare presentations. But part of my mind kept returning to the park, to Vivian's face, to my mother's tears, to the shocked silence after I'd revealed the truth. I felt no triumph, no satisfaction, just a deep, weary sadness that it had come to this, that my own family had made it impossible for me to simply exist as I was. My phone, even on airplane mode, showed dozens of missed calls and messages before we'd taken off. I scrolled through them briefly. Vivian, we need to talk. I'm sorry, I didn't know. Mom, please call me. Let me explain. We love you. Jasper. I had no idea. Congratulations, I guess. Various cousins and relatives, some apologizing, some making excuses. A few already asking if I could help with investments, business ventures, school tuition. I'd predicted that. The moment people know you have money, the requests start. I turned the phone off entirely and looked out at the Atlantic Ocean far below, dark and endless. Why had I kept quiet for so long? People would ask that I knew. They'd say I should have told my family, should have corrected their assumptions. But that missed the point. I had told them about the company when I started it. They'd dismissed it. As it grew, as it succeeded, I dropped hints, mentioned big contracts, mentioned expansion. They hadn't asked follow-up questions, hadn't shown interest. They'd made assumptions based on my car and my clothes, and those assumptions fit their narrative so perfectly. They'd never questioned them. I'd wanted to see if my family could love me when they thought I had nothing to offer. when I wasn't successful by their standards, when I couldn't give them anything except myself. And the answer was clear. They couldn't, or wouldn't. To them, worth was external. It was measured in houses and cars and designer labels and social status. The idea that someone could be successful without displaying it never occurred to them. The idea that I might have chosen simplicity over showiness never crossed their minds. We landed at London Luton just after 1 in the morning local time. A car service took me to a hotel in Mayfair. I checked in, went up to my room, and finally turned my phone back on. The messages had multiplied. I read a few, then stopped. They all said versions of the same thing. Shock that I'd kept this secret. Hurt that I hadn't trusted them. Anger that I'd let them look foolish. Not one, not a single message said, "I'm sorry for how we treated you. I'm sorry we never saw you. I'm sorry we valued you so little." I slept poorly and woke early for my meeting. The Barclays executives were professional, interested, impressed with our software capabilities. We talked security protocols, integration timelines, pricing structures. By noon, we'd agreed in principle to a 3-year contract worth $52 million. It was a huge win for Meltech. I should have been elated. Instead, I felt hollowed out. Over the next few days in London, finishing meetings and networking, the messages from home continued. My mother sent a long email. She wrote about how proud she'd always been of me, how she'd always believed in me, how she knew I'd succeed eventually. But I remembered her words over the years. "When are you going to get serious about life? Why can't you be more like Vivian? Maybe you should move home, save money." Every sentence in her email contradicted the reality I'd lived. It was revisionist history trying to rewrite the past now that the present had changed. My father left a voicemail. His voice was stiff, uncomfortable. "I know I wasn't a good father to you in this way. I should have asked more questions. I should have been more involved. I'm sorry." At least he was honest, I'd give him that. But 20 years of emotional distance couldn't be erased by one apology. Vivian sent multiple emails that evolved over time. The first was defensive and angry. "You should have told us. You let us make fools of ourselves. You deliberately deceived us." Then came bargaining. "We can move past this. Let's start over. I know things have been difficult, but we're family. Family forgives." Then came the inevitable. "Preston has an investment opportunity that would be perfect for you. A mixed-use development in Stamford. We're looking for investors." I deleted that one without finishing it. Jasper was more straightforward. He sent a single email. "I understand why you did what you did. I'm sorry for my part in it. If you're willing, I'd like to rebuild our relationship. But I understand if you're not." It was the most genuine response I'd received, and I appreciated the lack of excuses. But it was Emily who actually got through to me. She called and I answered. We talked for over an hour. She apologized profusely for never standing up to Vivian for participating in the family culture, of dismissing me for being a coward when I needed an ally. I told her I understood. Vivian was intimidating. The family dynamics were toxic. It took strength to push back. She asked if we could stay in touch, rebuild something real. I said yes. I believed her sincerity. From London, I flew to Paris for meetings, then Frankfurt, then back to Seattle. 2 weeks after the picnic, I was finally home. My apartment felt like a sanctuary. My dog walker had been taking care of Charlie, my rescue mutt, and when I walked in, he went crazy with joy. Unconditional love from a scruffy terrier mix. Sometimes that's all you need. I sent one group email to my family. I kept it brief and clear. Going forward, these are my boundaries. 1. No discussion of money, my company's finances, or my personal wealth. 2. No requests for investments, loans, or financial assistance of any kind. 3. No using my name or my company's name for personal gain or social status. 4. If you want a relationship with me, it will be based on genuine connection and mutual respect, or it will be nothing at all. I meant every word. A few people responded positively. Most didn't respond at all. The weeks turned into months. The story leaked somehow, probably through extended family, and a journalist contacted me. She was writing a piece for Forbes about women in tech. She'd heard about the family picnic incident and wanted to include it. I agreed to an interview. The article came out with the headline, "The Secret CEO, How Melisande Hartwell Built a Tech Empire in Silence. It talked about Meltech's success, but also about my choice to keep a low profile, to live modestly, to not broadcast my wealth. And it mentioned the family picnic, the toast, the jet landing, the revelation. The article resonated with people. I got emails from strangers who'd experienced similar family dynamics, people who'd been underestimated, dismissed, judged for not fitting conventional molds of success, people who'd chosen their own paths and been criticized for it. One woman wrote that she'd been about to give in to her family's pressure to quit her startup and get a corporate job. My story gave her courage to keep going. That meant more to me than any business success. Meltech continued growing. We expanded into European markets, then Asian markets. We hired more employees, moved into bigger offices. I became more public about my role, doing speaking engagements about cybersecurity, women in technology entrepreneurship. I was invited to serve on boards, to mentor other founders, to share my expertise. I said yes to the opportunities that felt right. My personal life changed too. I'd been so focused on work for so long, on building the company, that I'd neglected other aspects of life. I started dating someone, a high school teacher named Marcus, who I'd met at a coffee shop in my neighborhood. We'd struck up a conversation about the book I was reading. He asked me to dinner. On our third date, I told him what I did for a living, showed him the Forbes article. He read it carefully, looked at me, and said, "That must have been painful. Your family treating you that way. But I'm glad you stood up for yourself." Then he asked about my favorite books, my favorite Seattle neighborhoods, whether I preferred mountains or ocean. He wanted to know me, not my bank balance. 6 months after the picnic, Beatrice sent a letter, an actual handwritten letter, not an email. She wrote about being in therapy, about recognizing the toxic patterns in our family, about understanding how she'd participated in my mistreatment. She didn't make excuses. She didn't ask for anything. She just apologized and said she hoped someday I might be willing to talk. I thought about it for a week, then called her. We talked for 2 hours. It was honest, painful, real. We agreed to meet for coffee when she came to Seattle for a medical conference. That coffee meeting turned into dinner. The relationship was tentative, careful, but it was something. A beginning. My parents kept trying to repair things in their way. My mother wanted me to come home for Christmas. I declined. She wanted to visit Seattle. I said not yet. She kept sending care packages, newspaper clippings about Meltech that she'd collected, photos from my childhood, trying to prove she'd always cared, always been proud. My father sent quarterly emails checking in, asking about the company in a way he never had before. Their efforts were real, I think, but they were also too late. Or maybe not too late, but changed. We'd never have the relationship we might have had. Too much damage had been done. It's been a year now since that June afternoon. A year since Vivian's toast, since the jet landed, since I walked away from the family picnic and didn't look back. My life has transformed in ways both large and small. Meltech is now valued at over $400 million. We're considering going public in the next 2 years. My personal wealth has grown significantly. But more importantly, I've built a life that feels authentic. I moved to a larger apartment with better views, though I still kept it reasonable, comfortable, rather than ostentatious. I bought a new car, a Tesla Model S, because I wanted something electric and efficient, and I could afford it. Not to show off, but because hiding had become its own kind of performance, and I was tired of performing. I still shop at Target for basics, but I also buy nice things when I want them. The difference is I no longer police myself, no longer second-guess every purchase, thinking about what my family would say. I've built what people call a chosen family. My closest friends know about my wealth and couldn't care less. Amanda, my friend from college who was there when I was starting Meltech in my living room. Marcus, who proposed to me on a rainy Seattle night on the roof of our apartment building. No ring, just a question, and his whole heart. My team at Meltech, especially the early employees who took a chance on an unknown company and are now millionaires themselves from their equity shares. My neighbor James, who brings me vegetables from his garden and talks to me about composting and his grandchildren. Emily, who's visited twice and is slowly becoming the sister I always wanted. I've learned to set boundaries in all my relationships, not just with family. I'm clear about what I will and won't accept. I don't tolerate being diminished, patronized, or treated as less than. Some people don't like that. They say I've changed, that success made me hard. But it's not success that changed me. It's self-respect. It's understanding that I deserve to be treated with dignity. And if people can't do that, they don't get access to me. Vivian and I haven't spoken since the picnic. She sent a few emails in the early months, alternating between apologetic and angry. I responded once, reiterating my boundaries. She replied asking me to invest in one of Preston's projects. I didn't respond again. I heard through Emily that Vivian tells people we had a falling out over politics, that I'm too sensitive, that she doesn't understand what she did wrong. The lack of self-awareness would be funny if it weren't so sad. My mother calls occasionally. The conversations are polite, surface level. She asks about the weather in Seattle, whether I've been traveling. She no longer asks about work because she doesn't know what questions to ask, and I think she's afraid of saying the wrong thing. Sometimes I feel sad about the relationship we'll never have. Other times I feel relief that I'm no longer seeking her approval. My father and I have found a quiet peace. He sends articles about cybersecurity that he reads, asks thoughtful questions, admits when he doesn't understand something. We'll never be close, but there's a respect now that didn't exist before. He told me once on a phone call, "I'm proud of you," not because of the money, because you had the courage to build something to stand alone when you had to. I didn't need his pride anymore, but it still meant something to receive it. That picnic taught me the most painful but necessary lesson. Not everyone deserves access to you. Not everyone earns your vulnerability. Family is supposed to love you unconditionally, but sometimes they're the most conditional of all. They love the version of you that fits their expectations, that makes them comfortable, that confirms their worldview. When you refuse to be that version, when you insist on being yourself, the love evaporates. People ask me why I stayed silent for 10 years, why I didn't tell my family about my success. The answer is complicated. Partly it was a test, wanting to see if they'd value me without knowing my net worth. Partly it was protection, not wanting them to treat me differently because of money. Partly it was pride, proving I didn't need their approval. And partly it was hope, holding on to the possibility that they'd see me, really see me eventually. Silence is a powerful tool. It reveals truth. Without money, without status, without anything to gain from you, how do people treat you? Do they respect you, value you, listen to you? Or do they dismiss you, condescend to you, pity you? My family failed that test spectacularly, and while that hurt, while it broke something inside me that will never be fully repaired, it also freed me. I no longer needed to seek their approval. I could stop performing, stop hoping, stop shrinking myself to fit their narrow definition of worth. Your worth isn't determined by your bank account, your car, your house, your clothes. It's not determined by external markers of success that other people can see and judge. Your worth is inherent. It exists because you exist. It's determined by your character, your integrity, your kindness, how you treat others, how you show up in the world. But people who only value external things will never see that. And that's their limitation, their poverty, not yours. I learned that boundaries aren't cruelty. They're self-care. Saying no to mistreatment isn't mean or harsh. It's necessary. You teach people how to treat you by what you accept. For years, I accepted condescension and dismissal because they were family, and I thought I owed them that. But you don't owe anyone the right to diminish you, not even family, especially not family. Real success isn't about proving anything to anyone. It's not about fancy possessions or public displays of wealth. It's internal. It's building something you're proud of, being someone you respect, having people in your life who see you, value you, celebrate you. Those people might be family, or they might be friends, partners, colleagues, neighbors, the barista who knows your coffee order. Family isn't always blood. It's the people who choose you and keep choosing you, who show up for you, who make space for your whole self. That moment when the jet landed, people think it was about revenge, about showing off, about making my family feel small the way they'd made me feel small. But it wasn't. It was about truth. For 10 years, I'd lived with the gap between who they thought I was and who I actually was. That gap had become unbearable. Not because I needed them to know I was successful, but because their treatment of me had become intolerable, and I needed them to understand they'd been wrong. Not wrong about my net worth, but wrong about me. Wrong to judge, wrong to dismiss, wrong to assume. Truth has a way of revealing itself, sometimes quietly, sometimes loudly. That day it needed to be loud. It needed the physical manifestation of a jet landing of undeniable proof of a moment so dramatic that no one could dismiss it or explain it away. And even then, even with that truth staring them in the face, some people couldn't accept it, couldn't admit they'd been wrong, couldn't apologize without qualifications. I hope my story helps someone out there. Someone who's been made to feel small by people who should lift them up. Someone whose family doesn't see their worth because it doesn't fit conventional molds. Someone who's been hiding their light to make others comfortable. If that's you, I want you to know this. Stop hiding. Stop performing. Stop shrinking. You don't owe anyone a smaller version of yourself. The right people will celebrate your success, not resent it. They'll be curious about your life, not dismissive. They'll value you for who you are, not what you have or what you can give them. The wrong people will reveal themselves. They'll be resentful, demanding, conditional. And that's okay. Better to know the truth than to live in comfortable delusion. Better to be alone and authentic than surrounded by people who only love a false version of you. Walking away from family is one of the hardest things a person can do. It goes against everything we're taught about loyalty, about blood being thicker than water, about family always being there. But sometimes walking away is the most loving thing you can do. For them, because you're no longer participating in a toxic dynamic. And for yourself, because you're choosing dignity over acceptance, peace over approval. That day at the picnic, I thought I was losing my family. And in many ways I was. But I was also gaining something more valuable. I was gaining myself back. My dignity, my truth, my peace. That private jet didn't just take me to London. It took me to freedom. Freedom from the need for their approval. Freedom from performing a role I never auditioned for. Freedom to live authentically, to be proud of what I've built, to walk through the world as my whole self. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is walk away. Not in anger, though. Anger is valid. Not in revenge, though the truth can feel like revenge to people who've been lying. But in self-respect. In knowing your worth. In refusing to accept less than you deserve. Even from family. Especially from family. Because if the people who are supposed to love you most can't do it right, why would you accept it from anyone else? That picnic was a year ago, but I carry its lessons every day. I'm more careful now about who gets access to me. I'm clearer about my boundaries. I'm less willing to tolerate disrespect or dismissal. Some people think I've become cold or hard, but I haven't. I've just learned the difference between kindness and doormat, between humility and hiding, between family and people who happen to share your DNA. I still don't flash my wealth. I still live relatively modestly, though I no longer police every purchase. I still value simplicity over showiness. But now it's a choice, not a performance. I'm not hiding from my family. I'm not testing anyone. I'm just living in a way that feels authentic to me, surrounded by people who value me for reasons that matter. And that, more than any amount of money, more than any business success, more than any dramatic jet landing moment, is what real wealth looks like. Knowing yourself, respecting yourself, surrounding yourself with people who see you and love you anyway. That's the success that matters. Everything else is just details. So I want to ask you, have you ever had to choose between family expectations and your own authentic path? Have you stayed silent about your achievements to avoid judgment or spoken up and faced consequences? How do you navigate relationships with people who only seem to value you when you meet their standards? Share your thoughts in the comments below. I'd love to hear your stories. And if this story resonated with you, if you've ever felt underestimated or dismissed by people who should have supported you, please hit that like button. Subscribe to this channel for more stories about finding courage in difficult situations, about choosing yourself when no one else will, about building a life that's true to who you are, rather than who others want you to be. Share this video with someone who might need to hear it. Someone who's struggling with toxic family dynamics. Someone who's hiding their light. Someone who needs permission to walk away from people who diminish them. Sometimes knowing you're not alone, knowing others have faced similar struggles and survived, makes all the difference. Thank you for listening to my story. Thank you for being here. I hope it encourages you to set boundaries where you need them, to walk away from situations that diminish you, to value yourself even when others don't. You deserve relationships built on respect and genuine connection. You deserve to be celebrated, not tolerated. You deserve to live authentically without apology. And remember, your worth isn't up for debate. It's not determined by other people's opinions or approval. It exists because you exist. Don't let anyone, not even family, convince you otherwise. Take care of yourselves. You're worth it.